The United States needs to rethink its foreign policy. That's pretty much it for this video. So what do I mean by that? I mean, ever since like post-World War II, so from the Cold War on, the United States has had a bit of a propensity for interfering where it ought not to interfere. So let's go down the list, and these are just a few. So why is Iran so screwed up? Well, actually, it's because of the United States. So what happened was, back in the day, the 50s, Iran was essentially on its way to being a more democratic country. However, a lot of Britain's oil fields were in Iran, and Iran was attempting to essentially take those back from the British. So along came this one guy who was running for president, and he ended up either getting very close to winning or actually winning. I forget. But essentially, this guy was not very friendly to British oil. So they went up to Eisenhower and they basically said, "Hey, Eisenhower, this guy's a communist." So of course, there was a CIA-led coup to depose this guy and reinstate the Shah, and then the Shah was extremely authoritarian, and people couldn't stand him, which led to the 1979 revolution, which is why Iran is the way it is today. Additionally, a lot of democratically elected socialist governments in places like South America were toppled through intervention by the United States. Chile, for example, and Chile was a horrible dictatorship up until the 90s. And the United States instated that dictatorship. Now let's go on a little more recently, Afghanistan and Iraq. So we went into Afghanistan and Iraq wanting to essentially spread democracy. Well, now, actually, if you look at it according to Freedom House's Freedom in the World Index, Afghanistan and Iraq are authoritarian dictatorships. Nothing has changed. There was a very short change where they were free for a small amount of time, but not anymore. And even then, what we did in Iraq actually created a power vacuum that led to the rise of ISIS. And then also we intervened in Libya with drone strikes, and then Gaddafi was defeated, and now Libya is a lawless Mad Max wasteland of a country. And of course, all of that is what led to the refugee crisis, which is screwing up Europe right now because a lot of people are immigrating to those countries and trying to make them like the authoritarian Muslim countries that they immigrated from. So all of this is basically the United States' fault. And I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say that we haven't been the good guys since maybe the Korean War. So yeah, it's been a long time. Well, no, sorry. We were the good guys originally in Afghanistan when we got rid of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, because they did attack us on 9/11. But other than that, I really haven't seen a time when we have been the good guys recently. So what do I envision that we do? A full-on non-interventionist foreign policy. If there is a conflict that does not concern us and deals with parties that are not a threat to us, then we need to stay out. The only time we should intervene in something like that is for humanitarian efforts only, essentially to distribute food, medical supplies, and not to act with force in any way. That is the only time we should go to other countries when there's a conflict that does not concern us, to help people. That is it, not to fight. So we have all these bases overseas in Europe, Asia, everywhere. So what we need to do, honestly, pull out of all of them. Any United States military base that is not in a United States state or territory should be abandoned. Now, yes, we do have offices in other bases, allied bases internationally. For example, there is a United States presence in the United Kingdom, but the United States works out of royal military bases. So what do we do in those situations? We should only work in that aspect if war is declared. If war is not declared, we need to pull out of those places as well. We do not need permanent bases outside of United States, state, or territory. As for the size of our military, we need to adjust it so that it is used so that it's geared for homeland defense. In other words, instead of having all these different naval fleets responsible for different parts of the world, we need ones that defend the West Coast, the East Coast, the Gulf of Mexico. That's it. So that's basically my idea for a foreign policy. We should not get involved. We should pull out, and we should strengthen our own country with our military so that it is an impenetrable fortress. Thoughts? Leave them in the comments.